Sally's Midlife Adventures, Part 7, The Protective Binding Sigil Pendant. Sally sat on the balcony of her manor, contemplating everything that had transpired in the last few days. So much information in such a short time. It was almost overwhelming. She remembered how Tom had mentioned that he thought Claire looked like a younger version of Emma, but actually it turns out that Claire was Amber's daughter in a previous lifetime. Amber had lost her husband, the love of her life, and her daughter, and became a phoenix, who will eternally protect Claire. How deeply sad that was, yet how totally wonderful it was too, she thought to herself with a smile on her face. Emma had mentioned that she had transformed into a dragon momentarily during the annihilation of the scarlet-eyed beings. Perhaps I haven't totally lost myself as a dragon, Sally thought to herself. Perhaps we never really forget who we are in all our lifetimes, she pondered. It made her happy, realizing that she was free. Free from all judgmental colleagues at work, free from time constraints, free from being told what to do and when to do it. Her entire life had been filled with corrections and restrictions. Inheriting Uncle Dan's manor had changed everything. She had discovered who she really was, and that nothing was as it seemed in life. So many secrets she had never considered, but what an adventure it was discovering them. The magic sigils, the portals, her healing powers, reincarnation. She'd always thought reincarnation was a definite possibility, but was never sure. Now she knew the truth, and it was mind-boggling. Then there were the manor's ghosts. So they were real too, all along. She let out a little chuckle to herself at the craziness of it all. It was like the manor was on some strange island of its own, because everything she'd ever questioned seemed to be true. She recalled watching programs online where ghost experts went to haunted locations and tried to contact the dead. When they did manage to record a bump in the night, they would nearly break down the doors trying to run away. What did these people actually want? Sally pondered. If I was a ghost, I'd want someone to actually talk to me, not to be rude and disrespectful and make it into a ridiculous game. Ghosts were people once upon a time. They sometimes don't realize they are dead due to a traumatic or sudden death. Or they need to get a message to someone, or maybe they just really want to stay on their beloved property, just like the manor's ghosts. Sally contemplated how amazingly the manor's ghosts could interact with everyone, because the manor was on the nexus point, making for powerful energy within the manor's grounds, thus enabling them to continue living as normal people. They didn't need to eat or sleep, however, and only appeared when called or when anticipating they were needed, which made for fantastic management of the manor. Sally really felt extremely privileged to be a part of all this magic. Sally sat back in her chair on the balcony and put her feet up on the little coffee table, staring out at the beautiful landscape as the sun began to rise over the hilltops. She mumbled loudly. Then there's Emma's boyfriend Tom, who just happens to be a time traveller from the 1700s, who travelled to the 1980s to start his life and saved Emma's life 20 years ago. And Emma, my best friend in the whole world. Psychic Emma, who is only discovering her talents of seeing ghosts now. Sally almost chuckled loudly at the thought. Then there's Jake, Emma's nephew, and Claire's boyfriend, who was Claire's love interest in a previous life too, but who had been tragically killed along with Claire and her father, leaving Amber totally devastated, and all this leading to Amber becoming a phoenix. What a crazy bunch of people they all were, but how intrinsically their lives were now entwined. Sally pondered, but she wouldn't change a moment of their adventures together. Somehow they were now a family, meant to look out for each other if they were to survive the scarlet-eyed beings from the other realm, and who knows what else was capable of getting through. Just then Emma knocked quietly on her bedroom door, entering with a tray of delicious cappuccinos and a plate of buttermilk rusks. "Oh, there you are, Sally. Feet off the table if you want some early morning sustenance," she ordered happily as she placed the tray of goodies on the table. "So, any ideas how we're going to eradicate these scarlet nasties? Or at least block their entrance somehow?" Emma asked, getting serious very early in the morning. "I have found a binding sigil that just might work, now that you asked," Sally said with a tone of seriousness as she dunked her rusk. "But we will have to teach Claire and Jake how to do them, and some protective sigils too, just in case. I know they can't afford to leave the horse rescue for too long, so I'll portal them back here for a couple of hours for some training, and we can have some of the chef's delicious spinach and feta ravioli in cheesy mushroom sauce before I take them back, Sally announced excitedly. No use only focusing on the nasties and not have something delicious to end the visit with. Emma smiled. She too was excited that Jake and Claire could visit literally at the drop of a hat, so to speak. She loved her new life since she moved into the manor with Sally. It was large enough to enjoy their own space, yet they were close enough to spend time with each other whenever they wished. I like the sound of that ravioli, Sally. If it wasn't for these rusks, I'd be drooling by now. Emma laughed as she sipped her creamy coffee. Emma phoned Jake and organised to meet them in the kitchen of the horse rescue. They'd arranged for a helper to be there for a few hours while they were gone, so everything was set. The familiar whoosh sound still surprised them. Moments later, Sally stepped through the portal and hugged them warmly. Are you guys ready for the adventure of a lifetime? Aunt Emma is waiting with hot chocolate. Sally exclaimed excitedly, seeing their expectant, happy faces. She took their hands and stepped back into the portal before they even had time to answer or change their minds. Whoosh! They appeared back in the lounge at the manor. Oh wow, Claire whispered loudly, catching her breath. It's so beautiful, like a castle with a huge stone fireplace. I love it. Jake stood in awe, not quite expecting to feel as overwhelmed by the sheer energy of the manor and the pure beauty of the stone it was built from. It feels so warm and inviting, Aunt Sally. Jake finally gushed his words out. Breathtaking. Just then Emma walked in with 4 hot mugs of creamy hot chocolate and placed it on the table in front of the crackling fire, which had been lit a few hours earlier to heat the huge comfy lounge in anticipation of their visit. Jake! Claire! Emma grabbed them both with a warm hug. She was so glad to see them again. We can't wait to show you around and update you both. Emma gushed as she handed them each a mug of lava-like creamy hot chocolate. Sally had surprised them with a special pendant she had made containing an emerald entwined in a protective binding sigil she had researched and tested herself. One for Emma, Claire and Jake, on a specially forged stainless steel necklace, so that they always had it on them. 2 hours flashed by as Sally showed Claire and Jake how to use the sigils and how they worked. It was a process to enable it, which only they knew, just in case they lost the pendant or it was found by someone unsuspecting. Claire and Jake had been shocked by the magical green light emanating from their protective binding sigil pendants once they had activated it, but finally settled into the process after a few tries. In fact, they seemed to be downright enjoying the process. Sally and Emma laughed as they created their emerald green protective lights around themselves, and finally they all agreed that for it to work, they would never hesitate when in danger. It was a real threat and they had to be ready. As they all settled in their dragon-carved bucket dining chairs, which were lusciously padded in purple velvet, Sally's favourite colour, the dining table was solid oak with beautiful designs carved on the edges, supported by carved dragon legs. An exquisite dining set made by Chester, the manor's gardener, in his spare time. Anna the chef had created her usual impeccable spinach and feta ravioli in creamy cheesy mushroom sauce, brought to the table by the much-loved butler James. Everyone seemed to be in their own private heaven as they tasted the delicious meal, savouring every bite. I have never tasted anything so delicious, Jake exclaimed in total awe and not wanting to finish his meal too fast. Aunt Sally, this is sublime, Claire murmured between mouthfuls of the delicious ravioli Anna had prepared. I hope we can pop in more often, she laughed, especially at mealtimes. Sally and Emma laughed and clinked their wine glasses in sheer glee at the wonderful moments they were sharing with their extended family. I'll take you back in an hour once your food is settled, unless you need to go back now. Just then a shadow darted past in the passage. They all felt a change in the atmosphere, as if something was wrong. It's one of those scarlet nasties, Emma shrieked suddenly. Emma decided to name them this, as it made them seem less threatening. Great time to try out your protective binding sigil pendants on their actual enemy, guys, Sally shouted. They all grabbed onto their pendants, quickly traced the sigil in the way they'd been shown, ignited the emerald and were surrounded by the green protective energy. Sally moved towards the nasty and herded it towards them. They formed an open circle and trapped it in an instant. Sally pushed her hands towards the creature, emitted a purple fiery haze, and it blew up like a firecracker, into sparkles of embers in a fire, obliterating it into nothingness. Jake and Claire moved closer to Emma and stared in shock at Sally, not knowing quite how to react. "Aunt Emma, did you see what we just saw?" Jake asked, a little afraid of her answer. "Yes, Jake and Claire." Aunt Sally temporarily transforms into her dragon shape when she obliterates the scarlet nasties. But she's still our loving, protective Aunt Sally. Emma hugged Sally and motioned for Claire and Jake to form a group hug, as Sally awkwardly apologized for forgetting to explain this phenomenon to them. They all laughed and poured a glass of sherry to calm their nerves before they were escorted home in the wildest way of their new adventure together. Sally smiled at how awesome it felt to finally be loved and accepted for being the bizarre eccentric she was and had always been.